You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
All right, Peter Basserman. I am chairman of Branford's Wetland and Water Courses. It is 7:01 on Thursday, the 11th of May, 2023. We are meeting in an online environment under Public Act 22-3. We're using the Zoom platform for the meeting this evening. As mentioned by staff, please try to frame your face within the context of the square on the Zoom screen so that the public can view you and your comments accordingly. Let's see, if you need to speak when the opportunity arises, please use the raise your hand feature of the Zoom platform so that you can be recognized. And I think we're good to go. We're going to use a roll call to begin the meeting. Let's see. Clarice Begerman.
Commissioner Begerman here.
Commissioner Meissen. I think you're muted.
Commissioner Meissen here.
Okay. Let's go here. Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Armrod here.
Did I get Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro present.
Peter Basserman present, and staff. Agent
Jamie Frederick present. We also have Commissioner Begerman joining us now.
Okay, Commissioner Begerman, I think you already signed in. Did you?
Oh, you're right. Correct. Yep, she did already do roll call.
And we have
Katie Blanchett present.
Thank you. I'd like to add an item to the agenda. By the way, the agenda we're using this evening was revised on May 10th. It's in the Dropbox on the website, and that superseded a previous agenda. I need permission, I believe, from the other commissioners to add an item to the agenda. Is that correct, Pam?
You would need a motion.
I can't make a motion, or can I?
Yeah, you could set forth the motion if you wanted.
I'd like to make a motion to add an item, administrative item to the agenda. Shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes. There's no decision for tonight, but I think
Recording it.
I'll just discussing right at the beginning of the meeting. Is there a second?
Commissioner Finaro seconds that.
Any further discussion on that? All right, can we do a roll call vote, or can we just do it?
Are you looking to add that to the beginning of the agenda or?
Right now.
Yeah, we should have a roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Begerman.
Commissioner Begerman, aye.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Armrod, aye.
Commissioner Meissen.
Commissioner Meissen, aye.
That's everything. All right, the item is, I have recognized over the last 6 months that the agendas that we deal with on a Thursday evening they are getting increasingly longer, and we're spending more time on those agendas. So I'd like the commission to think, and we can discuss it at the next meeting, given the size of the agenda this evening, both process, how we might streamline the process so that we can deal with all of the items, but in a more maybe expedited fashion, as well as maybe the frequency of the meetings that we have right now. We're meeting once a month, special conditions, sometimes we meet twice a month, but the commission can think about whether during these busy times we need to meet more often or establish a schedule anyways that may be greater than just once a month. Balancing obviously the workload with the time we get through. My concern too is, when things get past 10 o'clock, the quality of the thinking might deteriorate. And so, again, commissioners, please think about that, and we'll discuss in further detail at the next meeting. And I've had some preliminary discussions with staff. They've got some ideas as well. So to the extent that we can include everyone in the discussion at the June meeting, that would be great. That's all I have. All right, first up for the agenda, minutes of approval, March 9th, 2023, the regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept those minutes?
This is Commissioner Begemon. We're looking at the minutes for the March 9th?
Yes, I think there was some concern that was raised, and we decided to postpone the approval at the last meeting to today.
I make a motion, Commissioner Begemon, make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from March 9th, 2023.
And is there
Commissioner Meissen,
I think that was Commissioner Meissen?
yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody, we don't need a roll call on that, do we, James?
No, that's fine.
Okay, next up, we have the April 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Again, they were mailed out as well as they're in the Dropbox.
Commissioner Begemon, I make a motion that we accept the April 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Commissioner Meissen, I second that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to repeat that?
Commissioner Meissen, I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Last up, there's a special meeting, site walk, April 25th, 2023, the meeting at 177 Flax Mill Road.
Commissioner Begemon, I make a motion that we accept the special meeting site walk minutes from Tuesday, April 25th, 2023.
And a second? I'll second that motion, Mr. Basson. Any discussion on this special meeting site walk? Any opposed? Any approvals? Yes, aye.
Aye.
Everybody
Aye.
I'm in, okay. All right, first up on the agenda, item of business. Inland Wetland 230408, Sundance, 26 North Main Street, and arborvitae plantings. This is for receipt this evening.
Correct. So I did meet with the owner out at the property to kind of go over the proposed activity. So this is the trailer park on North Main Street adjacent to restaurant. I can show a quick GIS map kind of orienting everyone. Okay. So, 1 minute. This is the restaurant building. The trailer park is here, and there's a little parcel, which is actually part of Sundance condominium, in between the trailer park and Route 1. And they are looking to kind of clean up a little bit. It's mostly invasive herbaceous growth, and plant some arborvitae in between this parking area that's existing and a water course. I believe the owner is present in case the commission has any questions. Given that all activity is outside of the wetland and it's fairly minimal disturbance, and they're looking to basically just do plantings, I thought it would be appropriate for the commission to consider whether this was appropriate for agent review. And I can real quick, I'll just zoom in. This is the approximate area that they're looking to plant along the water course. There is some existing debris there that they're planning on pulling out as part of the project. And I'll just pull up a couple pictures. So as you can see, it's a bunch of mugwort. There's some multiflora rose in there. There's poison ivy. Poison ivy's not invasive, but it's not. And then there's like some debris piled up that they're planning on pulling off of the bank. They do want to bring in some topsoil, but they also are planning on having erosion controls in between the planting and the water course. We discussed possibly using a silt sock that was biodegradable, so they wouldn't have to worry about pulling it out. So,
Commissioner Bassett, would this all be hand removal?
I will defer to the property owner.
Yes, hand removal. We were told to, get in there good and sort of dig down and get the roots out of these invasive plants there. Would help with the arborvitaes growing along that edge.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commission? Any questions? Is the commission okay with agent approval?
Yeah, I'm okay with Commissioner Meinson, I'm okay with agent approval.
Does anybody not feel agent approval is appropriate? I agree with Commissioner Meinson. We do it and have to do anything. Well, we can't do anything tonight anyway, correct?
The action you took is pretty much the extent. There is also a request for a fee reduction. A lot of times when beneficial projects are being done, the commission does grant a fee reduction down to the $60 deep fee. Would the commission be okay with that being applied to this project, or does anyone feel differently?
Commissioner Bassett, question: what's the anticipated time for effort to remove this and do the plantings?
I'm thinking we do it over the next month. I have a worker that helps me, but he doesn't come in every day. So if it's all hand labor, it's a bit of work. So I'd say like over the next month, because we want to get it in before while it's not in the middle of the summer. So hopefully the next month.
I'm up, Commissioner Bassett, and I'm okay with the fee reduction to the $60 level, which is the deep fee suggested by staff.
Thank you.
Anybody feel differently? Okay. And then Wetland 230501, 22 School Street, residential addition and septic system.
We do have the applicant team present. I think this might be an application the commission wants to do a site visit for. So I thought it'd be appropriate for them to give a brief overview so the commission could determine if a site walk was needed, and if so, schedule that. Do you want me to screen share the site plans, or do you want to screen share yourself, or?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. So I think everyone should be seeing the site plan. It's an existing single-family house with a proposed addition and septic repair to accommodate the additional work. Other than that, I'll hand it over to the applicant to kind of give a brief overview.
Okay. My name is Mark Young. I'm a land surveyor with Waldo Associates, representing the owners of the property, Stephen Rosenthal and Mary McCormick. They've lived here for many years and decided they need a little more space. The site is primarily wooded. There's really no lawn as such. The area where the addition is planned right now is basically just brush, spice bush, some multiflora rose, bittersweet, and all that sort of thing. There will be 2 trees that I've shown on the site plan that would be removed because they are leaning towards the house and would constitute a hazard if they were left there. The owners have decided to replace the septic system. The existing system was built, 40 years ago. We're not sure what kind of condition it's in. So in order to accommodate the new addition, we've designed a septic system using what's called a GST, made by Geomatrix, modern system. There will be a pump required and a new septic tank to the east of the house. There are a couple of trees there the owners would like to save. I specified ring them with construction fencing, about a 5-foot radius to protect them from the equipment. Fairly straightforward construction. The septic system will require some fill. Soil tests have shown 2 to 4 feet of soil above ledge rock. So we're proposing some about 2 to 3 feet of select fill on top of the existing soil to accommodate the new system. That will just, and there will be a few trees have to be removed there now from the area of the septic system. After construction, we'll cover it loam, seed it, and it's up to the owners as to whether they want to mow the lawn. I don't think so. So I expect they'll be planting some native species, something like that. Stormwater on the new construction, the new addition. We're showing a rain garden near the edge of the wetland. I think that's probably the least impact solution. I'm not sure how effective a underground infiltration chambers would be. Rain garden can be very effective in this type of situation. So basically, erosion control will be a silt fence surrounding the construction area. I don't think there will be much of an impact. As I say, the existing vegetation is just basically low shrubs, and it actually drops off a bit towards the wetlands. So there's a bit of a separation based on the topography. So basically, that's about it. New addition, new septic, and we feel there'll be no impact on the wetland. The architect, Philippe Campos, I believe, is with us, and I think he might have some words on the layout of the addition. Philippe?
Good morning, Commission. My name is Philippe Campos. I'm an architect practicing in Branford. And This is a unique project for me because at the time, in 1978, I had just started practicing. I was not licensed and I acted as a contractor. So not only did I design the project for Steve, but I also got all the permits, and then I brought my own crews to build the house. This was from a time way back when you could still build a comfortable, simple one bachelor house for under $50,000, 1,300 square feet by doing the bare minimum. Now the house would cost 10 times as much. And in fact, the addition is going to be close to the cost of a new house on that site because of the complexity, and also because we're very mindful of the issues with the wetland. And so we try to design a building with the lowest possible impact. We have no basement, we have no crawl space, we have no footing drains. The roof slopes are away from the wetland so we can capture any runoff before they have any effect locally. And unfortunately, we are very aware this is about the worst place on the site where you could put the addition. But when it was designed in 1978, the records showed there was no wetland on the property. At the time, there was no wetland survey, there were no soil scientists, there were no soil reports. And the only way to determine wetland was by going to John Moss's office at Planning and Zoning, where Shirley Rasmussen had just started working. And she and I looked at the official wetlands map of Branford to see where and if any wetlands were on the property. And so the official map did not show any wetlands on our property. It showed wetlands to the property on the west of us, but not this property. So as a result, we ended up putting a house in a place that back then was fully complying, but now is creating some serious challenges for putting a low impact addition, which we try to keep as compact as possible. And so there is no landscaping to speak of. It is essentially going to be restoration, letting nature take back what was there before. That's the natural yard that you can see now on a walkthrough, and that's how it's going to be afterward. There is no intention to change anything. And the idea is to live in the woodlands, live in nature, not live in a pretty picture.
Commissioner Bassman, what's the closest, distance between the wetland and either the existing house or the addition?
The distance from the addition to the flagged area is 9.7 feet, I believe. And the distance from the house is a bit greater. The distance from the house is about 26 feet, measured perpendicular to the wetland flag line.
And as a follow-up, how are we treating the stormwater from the house and the addition?
The stormwater from the house is basically captured directly by the surrounding grade. There is no gutter system on the house now. Essentially, it's a very simple geometry. The building is two single slope shed boxes that are, as you saw from the renderings that are cobbled together, they're connected at right angles. So there is one slope to the south and one slope to the west. And each slope at the bottom of the roof spills onto grade along the building.
Mark, why don't we chill out going forward?
Do we have hydrology calculations for the stormwater in terms of the management system?
Mark Young again. We calculated the volume of runoff from the addition and sized the proposed rain garden appropriately.
Jamie Frederick, in the Wetland Agent. I just want to point out, I did provide some initial comments, and I also provided a copy of the site plan to the town engineer for his review. And he pointed out that the stormwater calculations, it takes the new addition and it subtracts the original condition for kind of like a net change, which is a little bit different than what we normally see. Usually we see a stormwater calculation based on what the proposed condition is. So I did want to just point that out in case the commission has any concerns regarding that.
Commissioner Bassman, yeah, I have a concern. I think we, for consistency's sake, and to get a total understanding of the project, we should get the calculations as we normally look at them. I'd be happy to revise the calculations in accordance with the town engineer's recommendations, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I have not gotten that information to the applicant yet.
Yeah,
but the calculations are presented.
Correct.
Right, and that's,
I will follow up with that comment.
okay. We've used this procedure for many years, but we're open to new things.
Comments from the commission or questions?
The application is just for receipt, so it's not actionable.
Yep.
I do think if the commission wants to schedule a site walk, we should try and set that up prior to the next meeting.
Yep.
Unless the commission thinks it's not necessary.
My take is, Commissioner Bassett, my take is, given the distances to the wetland, that we would be, it would be prudent to have a site walk.
This is Commissioner Begeman. These questions may come up next time, but in terms of removing those trees that are actually in the wetland, I think we would want to know how that's going to be proposed to be done with minimal disturbance of the wetland.
We will, I'm sure we will defer to a professional tree outfit. I expect they could probably, take it apart with from a cherry picker and, just drop the pieces piece by piece and cut it off flush with the ground and, carry the wood out by hand. It's a small tree. The tree in the wetland is about a 4 or 6 inch birch tree. The other one's a little larger, but there should be enough room to, to top it from a bucket truck and, drop the rest of it to the ground and cut it up and take it out by hand. That's the way I would do it. And I think there need be no real disturbance to the wetland besides foot traffic.
Does any commissioner feel that a site walk is not required?
Commissioner Begeman, I think it would be good to have a site walk.
All right, let's pick a date and a time. How about the week before the next meeting?
That would work very well.
So when's our next meeting? The 15th?
June 8th.
Oh, that's right. I forgot the first. Okay.
June 1st.
June 6th?
Oh, no.
Too close? Memorial Day, 31. June, Saturday, Friday. Yeah, June 1.
June 1 is good for me.
rally around June 1?
I won't really, this is Commissioner Finaro. I won't really be around. I'll be away. So don't plan around me for the appointment.
Commissioner
I'll be gone the
Meinson,
whole
does that
week
work for
before.
you? Commissioner Meinson, does that June 1 date work for you?
Yeah, June 1st works for me.
Commissioner Amrad?
Commissioner Ormrod, do you know what time we're thinking for that, June 1st?
Let's see. What do we do? Usually 5:30, something like that?
Yeah, 5:30, Commissioner Meinson, 5:30 works better for me.
Commissioner Ormrod, same.
Commissioner Beckerman?
That's fine with me, Commissioner Begeman.
All right, that's a gimme. 5:30, June 1, site walk at 22 School Street. Anything else, Jamie, on this?
Unless anyone has any initial thoughts for the applicant, I think that that's good for the receipt.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, thank you. Inland Wetland 230502, 35 Bayberry Lane, a residential addition with a addition of a garage, I guess, as well. You got a screen share 35 Bayberry Lane site plan?
That's me. Good evening, Commissioner. Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering. I'm representing Julie Niezwicki on 35 Bayberry Lane. Let's see here. Jamie, can I share the screen?
I think I just allowed it.
Okay. Let's see. How's that?
There we go.
Okay, so this is
It's a bit fuzzy though.
fuzzy. Well, I'll zoom.
For me, it is.
Yeah, it's been a long day. So this is a property at Bayberry Lane. Is an existing house, part 2-story, part 1-story house, and the little patio on the side, and an existing deck here on the back that extends into this wetland line that was done by others, and an existing garage. Not sure what year the garage was built, but it's been here since before this. Julie has bought the property. In any event, what she'd like to do is replace the deck with a small addition. Sorry for jumping around. With a small addition to build a dining room area. It would be just frost step footings, very small crawl space. We suspect that because there's ledge kind of poking out all around in the back here, that the footings may actually end up being right on ledge. The other thing they would like to do is add a second story to the existing garage without expanding the footprint of the garage. The only caveat to that is that we would like to perform some test pits on the sides of the foundation just to verify the condition of the foundation before they go adding a second floor to it. So if the foundation is not satisfactory, we would have to come back and modify the application to include excavating a new foundation. But at this point, we're hopeful that it'll work out, and that's not necessary. It's truly just adding on to an existing structure. But we do need permission to dig the test pits because technically this backyard is within a wetland. This is all maintained lawn, and I realize this is just for receipt, but I will show some pictures if I could get the best ones to show. All right, let's see.
While Jim's looking for the pictures, I do think it is a unique site, so it might be helpful to add on to the site visit for June 1st, if that works for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's go to here. Hopefully you can see that. That's the front of the garage. So this is looking from the front of the garage toward the deck that they want to replace with the addition in the back. As you can see, this is all lawn area. It's just a very low deck. There's a generator there. There's another view of that same area. And there's the garage. And then, we would be digging basically right alongside, right up against the structure itself to verify the foundation in the short term. But hopefully, like I said, that the foundation is adequate and we're just adding structure to the top, taking the roof off and adding another floor. This is the back. And I also have, there were some pictures from the wintertime. Let's see. So here's a better shot of the backyard, although it's a little too far away. But so you can see the lawn does go kind of to about this point, and then the rest of it's is basically a natural area. But there's a lot of rock outcroppings and things. It's very actually. I think Jamie's right. I think it needs to be seen. There's a rock outcropping there. So it was flagged by somebody only in 22 as wetlands, but with all the rock outcroppings, it's very kind of interesting. I mean, this is in the wetlands. This is technically a wetland area. But again, you wouldn't know it. And then, so the garage is in the wetland area, but you can see it's actually up a little bit of a slope. But I do believe she's right. I think that it's probably worth a visit. You're going to see lawn mostly, but just to kind of orient yourself. We would, however, I realize that it's not actionable tonight, and we're going to have to come back next month, but we would hopefully get the commission's permission to dig the test pits. And again, they're only going to be 3 or 4 feet deep, maybe 5, but get the permission to dig those test pits before the next meeting, so that when we come back, we'll know for certain whether or not we need to replace that foundation.
That sounds reasonable for the test pits. I guess question on the downspouts from the gutter system in the garage, is that when it leaves the downspout, is that just sheet flow onto the lawn?
No, behind the garage, and I could go back to the other photos. Give me 1 second. No, wrong one. Screen. So that you can see the pipe's a little exposed here. There's actually like a stone trench that this I believe goes into, and I don't know that it outlets anywhere. I think it's just a stone trench. But the house, just bleeds out, I think, on all the corners.
Oh, okay. I got you. So it doesn't tie into any system from the house?
I don't believe so.
Right. We okay with a site walk on June 1 for 35 Bayberry Lane?
Yes.
We certainly have daylight enough to do too. So.
Also, do we have permission to do some digging right up against the structure before the next meeting?
This is Commissioner Begeman. I haven't come across this yet. So, Jamie or Peter, can you just give a little history? I mean, do they have to do, silt fence or when they're digging that, or is it just a very small diameter hole that goes down directly and you look at the foundation? I mean,
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Therese. I guess, are we using a backhoe for the test pit?
I suspect that it'll be attempted to be done with a shovel first, depending on how digging is, and then if necessary, a mini excavator would need to be brought in. But the excavated material would be put on tarps and then put back in the hole until until decisions have been made. So
yeah,
it would be a very short.
Going down 5 feet, that's a lot of shovel.
Yeah, well, it can be, yeah, depending on what kind of soil it is.
Well, especially when you said there was ledge relatively.
Well, if they hit ledge, then they know that this foundation is sitting on something solid. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a pretty temporary disturbance. You're digging it and probably backfilling it the same day, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think if the commission was okay with them doing it prior to the next meeting, as long as they had erosion controls on hand, especially if they needed to bring in the equipment to dig the holes and installed the erosion controls as shown on the site plan around the garage as needed. I think that could be done. And if the commission was concerned, you could have me go out and do an inspection after the test pits have been dug prior to the next meeting to make sure I'm satisfied with the condition.
Yeah, okay. I guess regarding the test pits, does any commissioner have a reservation about doing the test pits prior to the next meeting so that the assessment can be made as to whether the foundation will support the addition? Does anybody disagree with the digging of the test pits?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing silence on the no disagreement, I think you're okay to go. And
all right, thank you.
Jamie, you're going to coordinate the timing so that you can inspect them.
We'll let Jim Preddy again. We'll let Jamie know when it's happening.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of comments / questions, but I'll send them directly to the applicant team so they can take a look at that prior to the next meeting rather than hold everyone up tonight. Pretty straightforward.
Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetlands Associate. So are we doing the site walk at 6 p.m. on the 1st?
Usually we just say to follow.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, for people that are attending, it's probably going to be sometime around 6 that we would get at Bayberry. The people that are not going to the first site.
Okay, applications for review. First up, Inland Wetland 230304, 34 Oak Hollow Road, detached garage, 24 by 30. Any updates since we looked at it back in April?
So Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland agent. At the last meeting, the commission was looking at the drainage. There was some concern regarding if the drainage would function as designed. So the request was that a test pit be done to confirm it would work as designed and or alternative management options be considered. So since that meeting, I did receive a revised plan that took the proposed drainage off of the site plan. And I think there's a bit of confusion as to how to proceed, what is required. So the homeowner is present this evening. And I said, I've had a couple of conversations with the homeowner and the project engineer that did the site plan. I told the homeowner, I think it's best that you come to the meeting and have a discussion with the commission regarding what's being proposed, what's required. There is language in the regulations that allows the commission to waive the stormwater retention requirements for projects less than 1,000 square feet. So I will first pull up, let's see, I'm going to pull up the original plan and the revised plan. Okay. Screen share. All right, is everyone seeing a site plan?
Yes.
I didn't hear any responses, but not hearing any no's, I'll continue. So there is an existing single-family house, existing driveway, proposed garage. The original proposal was to collect the stormwater from the roof gutters, tie it into a system that would ultimately discharge to a level spreader. This level spreader was underground and was to work as an infiltrator. And the concern was whether or not it would intersect with groundwater. So standard practice usually is to do a test pit to see what the groundwater conditions would be. We didn't receive that information. Instead, we received a revised plan that has the proposed garage and essentially would have the gutters sheet flow over the yard and ultimately discharge towards the wetland based on the grade of the site. So I don't know if the commission has any questions, if the commission wants to hand it over to the applicant, or I do also believe I have some photos of the site if the commission wants to see those.
Just Commissioner Bassman, I'm looking for the wetland line.
Sure. So the silt fence is the circle line here, and the wetland line is this little like V line here.
Okay, thank you.
And it says existing shed here, but the existing shed is actually over here. It's just double labeled for some reason.
Okay. So there is nothing with the shed being in a different location, nothing in the wetland.
No, there's no structures in the wetland. That'd be correct. There is a pipe outlet at the northern extent of the wetland, which is why the wetland starts where it does. But
okay.
It looks like
This is Commissioner Bagman. So what's the size of the structure?
It's 720 square feet.
Oh, I see. And then how many feet is it before you get to the you know, if I don't know what direction, yeah, north.
Sure. 1 minute. Let me pull out the paper plan. About 43 feet from the closest corner of the garage to the closest point of the wetland.
Asserman. And the, I believe I heard that the stormwater sheet flows toward the wetland. That's from the rear of the structure, sheet flowing to the left as I'm looking at the site plan. Is that what's happening here?
Yes. Yeah. If you look, here's some, they don't have quite all of the topo information, but it's a very gradual, it's fairly flat, but it does pitch towards the rear of the property in the wetland area.
And as a follow-up, is there much of a slope change between the erosion controls and the wetland? So between
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent, I'd say the wetland's definitely like a little bit sunk in, but it's not like a steep slope. I think it has to do with the fact that the wetland is piped upstream. So it kind of, the condition, it is a stable condition, but it's definitely like a little bit lower than the rest of the yard, but not drastically. Let me see if I can grab the pictures real quick. All right. Oh, wait, wrong pictures. All right, is everyone seeing photos of a yard?
Yes.
Okay. So if we jump back here, you'll see it says TP new stump. Right behind the garage is this stump right here. So this would basically be the back of the garage. And then the wetlands on the opposite side of this fence that you can see in the background. So as you can see, it's fairly flat, but it does slightly pitch towards the wetland area. And then this pipe is where the wetland starts. And as you can see, so it's flat beyond the fence too, and then it kind of drops down a bit towards the watercourse portion of the wetland.
This is Commissioner Bassman. The origin of the water that's in that pipe is where?
So there is a wetland watercourse a couple houses further up. I think it's piped for 2 yards and then it dilates again.
Oh, okay. Okay. And we know that that's clear and running?
I'm sorry?
We know that that pipe is clear and running?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Bagman, so Jamie, you said at the beginning was something about a structure less than 1,000 feet. There's something in terms of stormwater retention. So can you speak a little bit more about that? And if, does this seem to you with 40 feet of space before you get to the wetland, does that seem like an okay just to have gutters?
So, well, to start off with the requirement is that at least the water quality volume as defined in the stormwater quality manual be retained and infiltrated on site unless it is demonstrated why it is not feasible or prudent to do so. And then later on in the requirement, it says this requirement may be waived for projects with less than 1,000 square feet of disturbance and for projects that have been determined to be de minimis by the agency or its duly authorized agent. So basically, if it's more than 1,000 feet, but the commission thinks it's de minimis, maybe based on its distance from the wetland, then it could be waived in that case as well. So as far as whether I think is appropriate in this situation, it's a little bit difficult to say since we don't really have, like they did come up with an original drainage plan. But my concern is that they go through the effort of putting it all in and it doesn't function because with it's located 10 feet off of the wetland. So it's quite possible that it would work as designed, but without that test pit to confirm that, if it's sitting in high groundwater during rain events, then it's not really providing any benefit. And it was an additional disturbance and cost to the homeowner that didn't need to happen. Because the way that system would work is the overflow from that system, if the level spreader is full, is that it would discharge from the gutters. It had like a Y system, so it would discharge in sheet flow like the alternative plan that we have now, essentially. So I think if the commission were to be satisfied with the sheet flowing over the lawn, that it would be pertinent to make sure that there's some sort of energy dissipator at the base of the drain, just to make sure that it's not going to cause washout, whether it's some crushed stone or a prefabbed something, or a small landscape bed or something like that, just to help slow the velocity of the water and kind of disperse it, which would prevent any channeling through the lawn. I think that would be worth a condition. But
Commissioner Basserman, I think in these storms that we witnessed over the last couple, 3 years, you know, sheet flow, which may have not been a big issue in the past, when we have these violent storms, become more of an issue. I guess what's the downside of doing a test pit to determine what the water level is?
So at this point, I would say the downside would be time on the homeowner's part. I mean, it was recommended that that be the course of action after the last meeting. And to my knowledge, a test pit has not been conducted. So.
Yeah, I guess from my standpoint, I think while time may be an issue, I think the empirical evidence of what that water table is like, given the proposal here is a sheet flow, I think becomes important. So I would suggest to the Commissioner Bassman, I would suggest that we continue to look for data from the test pit before approval.
This is Commissioner Begeman. So, Jamie, if I'm not mistaken, this is they've taken away the idea of a test pit and that other infiltrator, and now this is what we're supposed to be looking at. So does this become a second application? I don't quite understand
this is a modification to the original application. Yeah. It wasn't what I was expecting to receive. It's what we ended up receiving. I believe it was last week, end of the week, we received this from the property owner. So there hasn't been a whole lot of time to follow up with the engineer. I've mentioned, you know, we need something regarding the rationale, the thought process. Was there a test pit? And we haven't received anything other than the site plan. But I said to the homeowner, it's worth coming to the commission to see where they're at, see if, you know, if the test pit is required, if alternatives are required, you know, what information is needed to move forward. Or if you were satisfied with the sheet flow over the yard. But certainly, I mean, it is near that 1,000 square feet. I know that I believe this property owner said he hasn't had any problems with flooding, but I know that people with properties relative to this wetland complex have had issues with flooding. So I do think that's worth considering. I think that if, you know, there's a test pit and it shows that that original system isn't going to work as designed, then that provides more support for the secondary plan. Because they've tried to do something and it's not going to work. Or if it works, then great. Then the commission has the confidence to say, go ahead.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, did you say that basically we have a site plan, but nothing else?
We have a site plan and a detail, but we do not have a test pit, and I don't believe we have calculations either for the
I guess
sizing.
To me, it's an incomplete application.
So the commission would be looking for at bare minimum the test pit to confirm whether the first plan will work or not, and a calculation to make sure that it's sized appropriately.
Yes, and what the calculation would be if, in fact, we're just going to have this thing sheet flow.
I'm sorry, Peter, I can't really hear you.
I guess, yes, and all of the appropriate hydrology calculations regarding stormwater and sheet flow.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Commissioner Begeman. I would say that if they're going to go with the first plan, then the test pit, if they're going to go with the second, that we're not going to feel comfortable unless there is that information about how they're handling the water off the roof.
Okay, so either a test pit for the original plan or an alternative plan that maybe doesn't necessarily require a test pit.
But requires all of what we normally, Commissioner Bassman, but what we normally receive on an application like this, all of those boxes need to be checked.
And if they've done some investigation work and they come back with basically, we can't figure this out, then the commission might be open to the second plan. But there would have to be that demonstration of the what investigation was conducted and what were the results of that.
Yeah, that seems appropriate. Any further comments from the commission? Okay.
All right. So before we move on, just want to ask real quick, does the homeowner have any questions regarding that?
Hi, everybody. I heard everything. I was thinking if it's any rain harvesting system I can use to wash my cars. I have a lot of plants around the house, a lot. And I don't think that thing would help. You know, I'm willing to do that to prove it. Any, you know, in the back of the garage, I can put it high enough, probably to 7-8 feet high. And that would have a lot of power and pressure to me to use it all the way in front of my house. I got here in the summer. I'm a back home European, so I got tomatoes, I got eggplants, I got everything. I live in that thing, you know. So I got onions. I got a big garden over here. Jamie passed through and saw it, you know. I have 3 cars in the house. I wash them all the time, so I'm pretty neat when it comes to that. So I think any system like that would help or as Jamie said before, when the discharge of the water is pretty slow. I've been here for a long time, like, you know, and I never seen even so much rain and snow. I never seen any movement or change of the level of a thing. I agree that, you know, around there with the water discharge, I can come up with some big rocks. I can prove it, gravel, so we don't have any washout. If that thing was...
we need to have something that we can sink our teeth into. So we need the plans that go with whatever you're planning to do. And that's what we'll look at next time we get together.
Okay.
Yeah. And you just mentioned your garden. It's possible that you could have a rain barrel cistern type setup as part of your management, and you could talk with your engineer about that.
Yeah.
That way you can use that water for what you want to use it for, and you're not using the water you're paying for.
Right. Even if I paid back home, we didn't have no water like that. So, you know, the water that comes from the ceiling up there, it's better and has more minerals and better for the vegetables, my opinion.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't do, when those things wash, those chemicals or whatever, you know, so we'll take a look at the plan next time and
okay.
Engineer.
Okay.
All right, next up. Inland
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Inland Wetland 230305, 122 Flat Rock Road, pool.
This one we can skip for tonight. I'm expecting a revised plan. This is one we've talked previously about me possibly doing administratively. So hopefully it will not be on the agenda in June.
Okay. Inland Wetland 230403 has been withdrawn. So we'll move along to Inland Wetland 230404, 117 Flax Mill Road, an in-ground swimming pool and patio.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland agent. I might suggest that we table discussion on the application and start with discussion of the relative enforcement action for the subject property. And then go back to the application after the violation has been discussed, unless the commission thinks otherwise.
Commissioner Basserman, does the application try to fix the CC correct?
So the applications for an in-ground pool and patio, but it requests to keep the existing grading on site. And currently, as the violation stands to be remediated, the fill is to be removed. So I think it makes sense to address that fill material on site prior to discussing the pool.
Fine, thank you. Okay, so we have our first enforcement action, CC Correct 13-1101, 117 Flax Mill Road, a filling violation.
Peter, can you try turning your camera off and back on? It's kind of doing crazy things.
Oh, okay. I gotta find that. Camera video, stop video.
All right, 1 minute. I just see something in the chat. Somebody can't hear. I think that might be specific to your setup. Oh, at Peter. Okay, I guess Peter, people are having a hard time hearing you. So if you can try and speak loud or speak close to your device.
Okay, I kept the same setting that we had last time. So
yeah, I think when you lean back, it's hard to hear you.
Gotcha. Okay. CC Correct 13-1101, 117 Flax Mill Road, filling.
All right. So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Back in 2013, a cease and correct order was issued. There was some back and forth. The restoration plan was submitted and approved. As far as the department is aware, there was never actually any action to implement the approved restoration plan. Time went on. Some additional material was brought on site. Follow-up violation letters within the same violation were sent to the property owner and the violator. And a citation process was started but never finalized. The last action in our file is from 2016, I believe. And then the property sold within the past year. And we're looking at kind of what the condition is now, almost 10 years later, and what is kind of a reasonable way to resolve this violation, given the current site conditions and, the potential issues related with trying to pull that material out. We did receive a revised restoration plan from the property owner yesterday, I believe. Actually, no, I think it was the day before, but I had left for the day. And so we can take a look at that. I believe the property owner and his wetland scientist are present. If the commission has any questions, we did do a site visit. So I believe at least some of the commissioners have made it out to the site. Let me see. Did our site... does the commission want to start with looking at the site plan or with the restoration plan? I'll pull up a GIS map and then I'll pull up the restoration plan just so that the commission can kind of recall things. So existing house, circular driveway in the front, lawn, and then there's this kind of steep slope in the back that has been created from the fill material that was brought in.
Commissioner Begum and Jamie, I don't think you're sharing.
Oh, sorry. Well, let me try that again. All right. What the heck? Alrighty. All right, so we've got the house in the front with the circular driveway, lawn area. The pool is approximately proposed in this area over here. and the slope in the back that was created from all of the fill material that was brought in. What you're seeing on this GIS map is the old wetland delineation from 2004, prior to the fill material and prior, I believe, prior to this pipe being rerouted to its current position. Let's see. So the restoration plan addresses invasive species management, establishment of a wildflower meadow area at the top of the bank, and planting of 4 shade trees on the slope. I'm going to jump to the end and kind of show you the sketch that the soil scientist did. So this is the approximate area proposed for the wildflower seeding. Location of the trees would be on this slope, which would have the woody debris that can be removed by hand removed, I believe, based on previous conversations with the property owner, and then planted with the shade trees, and then managed for 3 years for invasive species. So again, just looking at the site plan, existing house and deck, proposed pool, the wood deck on the ground that's to be removed. This is the rock ledge that was out on site. The existing evergreen trees, the wildflower meadow area, and the 4 proposed trees. I have not had a chance to reach out to the applicant or the property owner or the soil scientist, but I would like to just have addressed this brief comments regarding the stability of the slope and the existence of proper growth medium for the trees in the proposed location, just to confirm that that's something the commission is comfortable with. So if the homeowner or soil scientist wants to kind of speak to the general plan overall, but also address those points, that would be great.
Hi, Jamie. For the record, Matt Davison, professional soil scientist, professional wetland scientist. I developed this plan for Mr. Sulo. I had also done the old plan back in 2013 for Mr. Massey. And when I was called out to the site to look at this issue, I recognized that there was substantially more fill than there was there originally, and that the fill was now earth, originally it was wood chips, and now it appears to be, mostly earthen material over the wood chips. I think removal at this point would be difficult, if not impossible, of the fill from the wetland. There's just very little access to the rear of the site. And then to get an excavator down there would require, terracing in the slope and then putting an excavator midway down. And it would be quite an operation. So, in doing mitigation here, really what the point here was just to get some native plantings on the slope. I don't think shrub plantings would be reasonable on the slope there, because they would just be overtaken by what's there now in relatively short order. So I think shade trees is probably a better option. They'll fill out in that area there and at least provide some shade to the understory. And then I was also thinking of the wildflower area in the top to enhance pollinator habitat. And then some invasive species control on the side slope. With the invasive species control, there's a number of different invasive species on that side slope now. I thought tackling the ones that have the most potential to proliferate and that are manageable now, those being multiflora rose, Japanese knotweed, and mugwort, would be the best option. I think that managing those species is manageable, even with just the homeowner and myself giving him input. I think he could control them. The wildflower area is something that wildflower plantings it's a specialized type of installation. normal landscape contractors would not succeed in doing it. So I did discuss this with both the homeowner and Rich Snarsky, who's a soil scientist in the state's been around forever. He's now basically installing these wildflower meadows. He has a very specific way of doing it. He sent me his brochure, which I provided to Mr. Sulo. I talked briefly with Mr. Snarsky, and he, at least without seeing the site, was interested in doing the work. But and I talked again with Mr. Sewell about this earlier, if he's not able to get someone who's specialized in installing wildflower meadows, I would not propose having just a random person do it. At that point, I would propose instead to do some type of tall shrub plantings within that same area instead. That's essentially it. I think the best you can do here at this point is to do something that would enhance pollinator habitat. There's really not much else here to do. I think the habitat value overall is limited. The slope does appear to be stable to me. I did not see any signs of erosion. I didn't see any signs of, groundwater exfiltration at the base of the slope that would be problematic. So I don't know that it makes sense to really mess with the slope other than to put some plantings on there.
This is Commissioner Funaro. I had a question about the wildflower seeding and the shade trees. As the shade trees get larger, is there any concern that they would shade out the wildflower mix?
That's a good point, actually. And maybe those trees should be slid down the slope just a smidge. I will say that there's a variety of species that can handle different shading conditions. And one of the nice things that Mr. Snarsky does is that he customizes his seed mix to the conditions. So they can be planted in any type of, shade, sun, soil conditions. He just customizes his mix based on the conditions. But it is a good point, and now that you say it, I probably would slide those down maybe 10 or 15 feet from where they are.
Yeah. Commissioner Begeman, just have a question. In your write-up, you talked about the invasives and using Roundup, and I'm in healthcare, so I don't like seeing Roundup being used, or the glyphosates in general. Do you have experience with people using like that highly concentrated vinegar instead, or?
I actually use that around my house, the vinegar. I use it near my vegetable garden. It will destroy the foliage in plants, and they will basically brown out immediately, but it doesn't destroy the roots and they come right back. So unfortunately, chemical treatment's the only way to fully control these things. You can do mechanical removal, but they will return. I mean, this may be counter to what you hear other wetland scientists say. I'm not very big on invasive species control in this type of setting. I think that invasive species control is just this blanket thing that's used everywhere. And I think in some places it makes sense and in some places it doesn't. I don't think that having invasive species here is going to make any difference in locally to the presence of invasive species. I don't think there's any need. I don't think there's any benefit to increasing biodiversity on this side slope. And most wildlife species are structuralists, so they don't care what it is that's there. They like the structure. I've probably found more box turtles in mugwort monocultures than I have in any other type of habitat because they find cover in it. So I think it's either chemical treatment or you could do mechanical treatment and control it for 3 years, but it will come back. I think even honestly with chemical treatment, after 3 years, it's going to come back. So that's the other thing about invasive species control. If you don't do it perpetually, it's going to come back. That's the reality of it.
I was kind of looking at the area proposed for invasive species management versus the plantings and thinking after that 3-year mark, some of those areas are probably just going to bounce back, especially since there's not, from what I recall from out on the site, there's not a whole lot of potential volunteers to move into that area other than the invasive species. Do you have any thoughts or comments to that beyond what you've kind of already said?
No, I think if I was going to tackle one invasive species, and even with the vinegar solution, what I would tackle is mugwort at the top of the slope, because it would be readily accessible, and you could knock it back with the vinegars. I have a mugwort problem on my own property, or I had one. I've got it under control. It exists with goldenrod. And what I found is that even just inhibiting its presence allows for other species to sort of compete against it. And I've gotten my property to a point where the mugwort is far less than the goldenrod. And I really don't put a whole lot of effort into it. And I think he could do that without sort of climbing around down on that slope. I was starting to see quite a bit of mugwort on the top of the slope, actually to the right of the evergreens. And so if that could be something where you just use that sort of vinegar salt solution, it's vinegar salt soap solution, and then just do it for mugwort along the top of the slope, it would at least keep that at bay. I mean, it's also something where with invasive species control, I think it's important. And what I was planning on doing, Mr. Sulo, and we've discussed it, is actually showing him what each species is and having him take this on. I think if homeowners take the initiative themselves, I think they find that it's not a huge effort, especially once you get the initial control in, and they might take pride in that, sort of managing that on their own. So I think the mugwort at the top of the slope is something Mr. Sulo could do. And then, when you talk about the 3-year thing, maybe it's something he will do for forever, like I do on my property. And then there is some benefit to it, as opposed to just having someone come in and just, herbicide it for 3 years and then letting it all come back. There's no net benefit.
Other commissioner comments, questions?
This is Commissioner Ormrod. Mr. Davison, the red maple plantings, it's your opinion that where those will be installed, it's competent material that, I'm looking at pictures and I'm seeing wood chips, but, would those trees take after a number of years?
I cannot say definitively because I do not know what's under there. What I would say is that the size trees I specified are balled and burlap, so they would have to get in there and dig a fairly sizable hole. So you'd know pretty quickly whether or not there is competent material there. If there's not, I think you could bring enough in to get it started. And I think that's one of those things where if there's a performance standard there, then we capture it there. And if they die, if it was not competent, they wouldn't last 3 years. You certainly would see decline. And then maybe if you have a performance standard where maybe he has to replace 1 or 2. And then maybe we, dig around a little bit and find a better spot in there. It really depends. I agree. You really don't know what's under there and whether or not it is competent. If it is wood chips and then there's soil above it, and assuming the wood chips have degraded some over time, they might take root in there and be just fine. But I don't know if it's just wood chips under there or what it is, but.
Does the plan, as Commissioner Basserman, does the plan look reasonable to the commission?
This is Commissioner Ormrod. A couple things that I would like to change or I guess modify the plan is again, the use of the Roundup. Whether or not it's needed. Who applies it? I think that should be specified. But otherwise, I think this is a good alternative to removing the material, the fill material.
Commissioner Basserman. Anyone else?
Commissioner Bergman, just a process question. So this is a cease and correct that we're talking about, right?
Right.
Currently, we're talking about the old cease and correct relative to the unpermitted fill that was brought onto the property.
Right. So we're deciding whether we can.
So essentially what the commission is being asked is whether to approve this plan in lieu of the plan that was approved back in 2014 based on the change in circumstances, both the additional fill material that has been brought in and the kind of longevity of how long the material's been there at this point and the amount of disturbance that would be associated with trying to remove that fill.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Does any commissioner feel that the fill material that was brought in some time ago should be removed? Hearing silence on that question, then is mitigation as proposed here a reasonable alternative to the removal of that fill? Anybody?
This is Commissioner Begeman. I think so.
Commissioner Ormerod, yeah, Sam, I think we've established that, the conditions aren't, it's not really feasible to get that material out of there. So in lieu of that, we're left to, enhance the wetlands. So, I think this plan is reasonable.
Commissioner Basserman, Jamie, we have three choices when it comes to the cease and correct. Am I right on that?
I think you might be getting a step ahead. So there's kind of two factors at play. Currently, the cease and correct order has been upheld and is filed on the land records. There's a mitigation plan that's in place to be implemented prior to the removal of the cease and correct order from the land records. So what they're looking to do is modify that restoration plan to something that is more feasible. And then once this restoration plan is satisfied is generally when the commission would reassess the status of that cease and correct order. So say they implement the plan, they monitor it for 3 years, it's successful those 3 years. At that point, the commission would then assess whether the violation is satisfied. And if they're satisfied, then it could be lifted and removed from the land records. But assuming that you incorporate the 3 years of monitoring into the revised plan and approve it, then it wouldn't be satisfied until those 3 years of monitoring are up.
So, Commissioner Basserman, just to clarify, then our role this evening is to say that this plan is a reasonable alternative, and with 3-year monitoring, this cease and correct would be on the land records for another 3 years?
I think that would be consistent with past practice if you were to approve the modified plan. And I think if there's any stipulations the commission wants to add based on tonight's discussion, if that can be done this evening through some language, then that's possible. Or if you're thinking it needs to go back, then you could have a revised plan drafted. But I think it's kind of been a couple of points that the commission has talked about, and those could possibly kind of just be added into any motion. But it's really with what the commission's comfortable with.
This is Commissioner Basserman. And Jamie, those additional points that were discussed had to do with the use of Roundup? Is that what?
Yeah, I'd say specifically the use of the Roundup, whether it's needed and who applies it. And then also kind of the relocation of the trees to accommodate the wildflower meadow area. The possible conversion of the wildflower meadow area to shrubs if a wildflower meadow professional is not available or cannot be obtained. And then also, I think specifically some survival criteria regarding those trees would be something the commission would want to address.
This is Commissioner Bassman. When we have this in an application, we've been certainly of late having a prepared text that the commission reviews and then votes accordingly. Is that something that we should consider for this cease and correct, given the number of points that need to be addressed?
I think that's up to the commission to decide.
So this is Commissioner Begeman. I don't know if cease and corrects always come in front of the commission, but I'm just going to try this out. If we said that if we look at this mitigation plan and add those points, for instance, that Roundup or the glyphosate substances are not used, but a vinegar solution or whatever is used, and Jamie, you could work on that writing. Can it then go to like agent approval too? Or do we have to do it as a commission and see the writing? Because
No, I would say that the commission needs to make the decision. You could make the decision and mention the things that you're concerned about, or you could have staff draft up the document that addresses those conditions for the next meeting if you want to see it in writing rather than try to verbalize it.
So let me this is Commissioner Begeman. I'll take a stab at I make a motion, right?
Yeah, it would be a motion. If you want to take a stab at it, and you can always withdraw the motion if
I'll take a stab at this is Commissioner Begeman. I'll take a stab at it and somebody can make friendly amendments to increase the, things I missed. So I make a motion that we accept the mitigation plan for cease and correct 13-1101 117 Flax Mill Road filling with the following changes: that instead of a glyphosate substance, a vinegar salt soap solution will be used for management of the invasives, that the trees on the slopes will be moved 10 feet further down the slope than currently noted, that if the wildflower bed is not considered feasible, if it's changed to shrubs, staff will be notified, and that there will be a 3-year monitoring processes with success being 85% survival rate. Did I miss out? Did I forget something?
I get a second, and then there can be discussion.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bassman, I'll second that. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
I would suggest amending the wildflower bed. If they're switching it over to shrubs, that plan be reviewed and approved prior to implementation. For the 3-year monitoring, 85% survival. I guess that makes sense. So basically you're saying you want at least 3 of the trees. Well, I don't really know how that works before.
Well, I think it would apply to the wildflowers or shrubs also. So I think Jamie.
I don't know if you want to specify like specifically how much survival you want relative to the proposed trees, I guess is what I'm getting at. And whether you want them to be like because they might not completely die within 3 years. So I mean, what's survival? But those are my thoughts.
So Jamie, what I'm hearing is Commissioner Bergman, that you're concerned that about the trees and the survival rate of the trees, and that there be something specific for their survival, and that there's 4 of them and 85% doesn't compute mathematically, right? So if you're looking to change it to like 75% survival rate of the trees that are planted and 85% survival rate of everything else, we could reword that. I would be okay to that, and then add your line about that it comes to whatever you said that. That's what I was intending, that if there's a plan to change from wildlife to shrub, that has to go for staff approval.
Okay. Peter, do you agree to those modifications?
I just want to be clear. You raised the question, Jamie, about what constitutes survival. But, we've had this monitoring and language regarding survival on many, many applications. Why is it particular to this project as opposed to raising the issue of survivability on, ones that we've addressed in the past?
I think the reason why I raised the concern specifically is the unknown with the growing medium that they're to be planted in. Whereas a lot of times they're being planted in.
Then it's Commissioner Bassman. Then why wouldn't we have a, tree expert be the one that says this tree is either, going to survive or not at the end of the period?
I think I may have overthought it.
And this is Commissioner Begeman. If they don't survive, they have to be replanted, or there has to be another plan. So,
right.
Yeah.
And would that revised plan need to go back to the commission, or could that be approved by the agent?
This is Commissioner Bassman. I think, given the specificity of where we're at in terms of these tree survivals, I think agent approval would be fine.
I missed that.
Agent approval would be where I lean if it had to be, redone.
All right, so a little wonky, but Basserman and Begemon, are you satisfied with the revisions?
Yeah, for me, Commissioner Bassman, could you just read the tree survival portion of the amendment?
I was next going to ask Katie if she was good, so let's check in with her for an answer for that.
Yep, I'm good.
All right, and can you answer Peter's question?
What was the question? Oh,
can you read that back, Katie? Yeah.
Okay, so it would be looking at 75% survival rate for the trees with a comprehensive of 85% survival rate for all plantings.
But we also, Commissioner Bassman, I think we also had an issue, whereas if the trees did not survive, that they had to be replaced. Or
a revised plan approved by the agent.
Right.
I think between Katie and I in the recording, we've got it. If you're satisfied.
I trust that the combination of you and Katie will bring this to what we want.
All right, any comments, questions, discussion from other commission members regarding the motion on the table?
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, do we need to specify that the cease and correct would remain until the end of the 3-year period, or is that a matter of process and we don't need to zero in on that?
You could specify it for clarification, make sure all parties are on the same page.
Yeah, it's just so that there's no confusion.
I don't think you really need to, because the motion is whether or not to approve the plan, not really anything to do with the status of the cease and correct order itself.
Commissioner Bassman, say that one more time.
The motion on the table is whether or not to approve this revised restoration plan rather than the status of the cease and correct order itself. So I think that that's a separate matter.
Upon reflection, I agree. Okay, anything else on this cease and correct?
We need a vote. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so let's go down the list here. Commissioner Begerman?
Commissioner Begerman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Armrod?
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Who am I missing? I'm missing. Do we still have a quorum? Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Bassman, aye. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Anything else, Jamie?
I think it's already been discussed, but as far as the cease and correct order goes, based on past practice, it'd be my recommendation the commission leave it in place with the understanding that this revised plan has now been approved and is the expected resolution for that cease and correct order. And the homeowner can request that it be lifted once all the requirements of that restoration plan have been completed, including the 3 years of monitoring. Does the commission have any questions, and or does the commission want to see if the property owner has any questions?
I certainly like the latter comment. Mr. Sulo, are you in line with the discussion tonight and where we wind up?
Yep, John Sulo, homeowner, 117 Flax Mill Road. Yeah, everything sounds great. Matt and I have spoken. We're going to work together on this. He's going to help me, and I'll take care of it and monitor it for 3 years. I definitely, if I'm going to spend the money on trees and spend the money on this stuff, I want to make sure that it takes and stays for the time that I live here. So, it's going to be monitored well past 3 years.
Great. You can enjoy the view of the trees when you're in that pool.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Take care. All right.
So we had tabled the application. I'd recommend we jump back to that.
Right. Inland Wetland 230404, 117 Flax Mill Road, an in-ground swimming pool and patio. We have a plan. Yeah.
Let's see. I don't want to, let me just take a quick second. I'm going to put my notes in the file so that I don't lose them. Okay. So we kind of already got a sneak peek at the site plan through the restoration plan for the cease and correct order. But I'll pull up the site plan. So in-ground pool, again, we conducted a site walk. There are photos in the folder. You guys can look at them, or if you want, I can share them on the screen for everyone to look at together. They've got proposed erosion controls. I did not draft a staff report for this since I didn't really know which way the commission was going to go with the restoration plan, which was just received. However, I did kind of draft a document that I have in my back pocket. Should the commission want to pull that up, we can certainly take a look at it. But start off with, does the commission have any questions regarding the proposed application? If you want, the homeowners present can give you a brief project overview.
Commissioner Basserman, I think, having looked at what was proposed and then the site walk, I don't have any additional questions. This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, do you have any outstanding issues that you requested of the homeowner that are not satisfied at this point?
No.
Does any commissioner have reservation about the plan as proposed? This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess I'll make a motion that we approve inland wetland 2304.
Before.
Okay.
Oh,
but,
sorry. Is that a motion on the table?
Yeah, that's a motion. I'm making a motion on inland wetland 230404, 117 Flax Mill Road for an in-ground swimming pool and patio. That the application be approved. Standard conditions apply.
This is Commissioner Finaro. I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I think that the commission should consider whether you want to make a finding that, as this application includes the retention of the non-permitted fill on site, that the restoration of plan approved for the cease and correct order on file for the property must be implemented within the same growing season as the project, or if the project is done out of the growing season, the subsequent growing season, something along those lines. And as a quick follow-up, usually we have a standard condition that applies to pools that no pool water shall be drained into wetlands, water courses, streets, or within 50 feet of those areas or to any storm drainage system.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, the first comment that you made was that the cease and correct be done in the same growing season as the installation of the swimming pool and patio?
To clarify, the planting called for in the restoration plan be conducted within the same growing season. So assuming that the pool gets installed this summer, that the plantings would also get installed prior to the end of the growing season. Or if it gets installed in the winter, that the plantings would be installed next year's growing season. Just to make sure that, they're kind of tied together and that there's a time frame for having that restoration plan implemented.
Which just, this Commissioner Basserman raises the question in my mind of, is there some reason why we would want that completed prior to the installation of the pool? Is there any?
I mean, you could require, well, I mean, I guess that should have been considered relative to the, I don't know.
I mean, in some respect, is there a tie-in for the two, environmentally, or we just want to make sure it gets done?
So I think the rationale would be that you're allowing that slope to remain to accommodate the pool installation. So you want to make sure that the, measures to ensure the long-term mitigation of that slope is implemented.
Okay, so I see the tie-in that you're making. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Done in the same time, not necessarily, ahead of it.
Could modify it to say or sooner.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's going to complain if the trees go in sooner than the pool.
No. But there was a bona fide reason on why you want that done, as opposed to just a leverage issue of making sure it gets done. So I'm okay with same time. I don't necessarily. But I guess it raises the question again of whether we can pull that all together this evening, or whether a staff report be issued that we can then vote on at the next meeting.
So like I said, I do have a draft document. I think it might be neater if you want, I can share it now, but I think it might be neater to maybe withdraw the motion, look at the report, and then decide how to proceed.
This is Commissioner Bassman. That works for me.
Is everyone seeing a Word document?
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, kind of have a couple findings here and then conditions of approval for consideration. We have a couple new commissioners. So just for clarification, this is kind of a starting point. Nothing here has to be included. It can be modified, removed, expanded upon, but this is kind of draft language that staff prepared to help facilitate conversations. So whereas the application includes keeping site conditions which were created in violation of the Branford Inland Wetland and Watercourses regulations cited in the file for a cease and correct order identified as CC number 131101 that were to be remediated per the approval corrective plan for said order. And whereas no corrective actions have been taken to resolve this violation, which was issued in 2013, and no follow-up enforcement action relative to this violation has been taken since 2016. And whereas a revised restoration plan has been submitted and approved to resolve CC 131101, which proposes to leave the violation fill on site and provide measures to help mitigate the impacts of that to the watercourse. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the application, as stated above, be approved subject to the following conditions, limitations, and modifications. Erosion control inspection, pre-planting meeting, planting inspection, final inspection. Pool water is not to be drained into wetlands, watercourses, streets, or within 50 feet of these, or to any storm drainage system. To help ensure slope stabilization and remediation of the unapproved fill remaining on site. The revised restoration plan to resolve CC number 131101, prepared by Davison Environmental, dated May 8th, 2023, as amended at the May 11, 2023 in the Wetland Commission meeting, shall be implemented within the same growing season as the pool installation. If the pool installation occurs outside of the growing season, then the plan shall be implemented within the subsequent growing season. Plantings per the restoration plan prepared by Davison Environmental, dated May 8th, as amended, shall be monitored and a report submitted. And then I'd maybe say on this one, just based on how discussion has gone tonight, maybe just saying plantings per the restoration plan submitted shall be monitored per the approved restoration plan, and get rid of the survival stuff and just defer back to the plan. A is a bond. I included that language in case the commission wanted to apply it, because it's easier to have it and look at it and say yes or no than to wish you had it and add it. Wildflower seed mix and any changes to the plant species shall be approved by the inland wetlands duly authorized agent. And then the standard conditions and general provisions which apply to all permits. So I don't know if any of the commissioners have any questions, comments.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess, given the uncertainty, if you will, on the underpinnings of where the trees are going to be planted, et cetera, and the question about whether that seed mixture is going to be, successful or not, I guess I hadn't thought about it, but the fact that you indicated a bond could be applied would seem to be in line with what we have done in the past when there are concerns regarding the plantings, and especially since this is kind of a mitigation environment. So I think the bond is appropriate. I guess the question is, do we establish that bond based on discussions between yourself and the homeowner?
Yeah, so it says the permit holder shall submit to the IW agent an estimate of the cost to bond these items for the agent's review and approval. So the items would be the plantings and the monitoring. So the trees, the plant mix, and the monitoring reports for the 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. This is Commissioner Basserman. Based on the conversation this evening, does any commissioner or staff wish to add or delete any section that we're looking at on these conditions?
Aside from modifying number 4 to defer to the report for the survival, I don't have any.
I thought you had deleted that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just making sure.
Any commissioner want to make a motion? This is Commissioner Basserman. I'll make a motion that the Inland Wetland 230404 117 Flax Mill Road, the in-ground swimming pool and patio, be approved in accordance with the staff report. Just scroll it, if you will. Scroll it up.
I don't have a header on it, so I just have the footer.
Oh, the footer then. Boy, that's light.
Draft considerations for permit conditions, 117 Flax Mill Road, IW number 230404.
Be part of the approval for 230404.
This is Commissioner Finaro. I'd like to second that.
Commissioner Basserman, do I need to amend that for that last sentence in item 4, Jamie?
Yeah, if you want to defer to the approved report for the survival standards.
Right, so that instead of an 85% survival rate of vegetation and control of invasive species, that we have 3 years of monitoring in accordance with the plan as filed for 230404.
Commissioner Finaro, I'll second that addition.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Armrod?
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Anything else, Jamie?
Nope, not unless there's any questions, but we'll send out the approval.
Mr. Sulo, you're going to have a busy summer.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
No problem. All right, now notice of violation 38 Howard Avenue, retaining wall and associated activities. Little background, Jamie.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So the zoning enforcement officer became aware of a retaining wall that had been installed at 38 Howard Ave. She had provided me with some photos. The retaining wall is within 100 feet of a water course, so I issued a notice of violation. I have received correspondence from a representative of the homeowner, and I've also talked with the homeowner, met with them and their engineer out on site. They have installed an erosion control silt fence at the base of the slope. In addition to installing the retaining wall, they removed a significant amount of vegetation in between the retaining wall and the water course. My understanding is that there was a lot of trash in that area that they were also pulling out. And there are 3 drainage pipes, I believe. There's 3 pipes coming out of the retaining wall that I would be looking to have some sort of additional information on and a plan to make sure that there's no erosion issues. So I know that they're planning to possibly, there's a little, rather than try and guess and say things wrong because it's getting late, I believe that there is possibly somebody present to represent the homeowner. I'm thinking for now, what's appropriate is for the commission to review the activity. I have some photos I can pull up, discuss whether there's any additional activity proposed, and discuss the process for resolution, whether any additional immediate action needs to be taken to resolve the violation. My understanding is that they'd like to keep the retaining wall that they've built without permits. So I would say the next step would be for them to submit an application for the commission to review. And then that application would be reviewed on its merits. And then depending on the resolution of that application, the commission would discuss next steps. So let me find the folder and I'll pull up some photos. And I do know that there are, the office received a letter of concern regarding the activity, which has been added to the file for the notice of violation as well. I did discuss that the matter does not have a public hearing. However, it is a public meeting, and the commission has had a past practice of allowing members of the public to speak relative to inland wetland and watercourse concerns. But again, this is kind of in the initial phase. They have retained a surveyor and project engineer, and they are planning to come up with a site plan, but it has not been prepared yet. So let's see. Screen share. All right, is everyone seeing a GIS map with houses and contours and whatnot?
Yes.
So the subject property is 38 Howard Ave, which is the residence that my hand cursor is hovering over. And a retaining wall has been installed in the rear yard, approximately where, well, that's kind of hard to tell, but somewhere in this area here. There was an old fence line, and I think it roughly corresponds with that. And then what the watercourse wetland area is there is a watercourse that runs at daylight slightly north of the property, and it runs behind some of these houses on Howard Ave. And it ultimately discharges down to Long Island Sound. All right, so you're now seeing photos?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a picture of the watercourse, and you can see that they have installed a silt fence. It's a little bit further installed than typical, but for the site conditions, it's certainly providing the desired effect of making sure that erosion won't be getting into the watercourse area. So you see that the main pipe the highest up pipe for the watercourse is a little bit further up than the subject site, and there's 2 additional pipes that are visible from the subject property that feed into the watercourse. I am not sure that one of these looks like it's a roof drain or footing drain pipe, and I'm not sure what the other one is. This is the slope that has had the vegetation removed. I have discussed with them that there should be some sort of plan to revegetate this area. And this is the retaining wall from above, and there is a paver driveway area that has been installed above that. And I'm going to just jump over to the ZEO photos real quick, because her photos show the 3 pipes that I was talking about. So there's 3 pipes coming out of the retaining wall, which should have some sort of, we should know what they are, if they're new, if they were existing, and have some sort of energy dissipator at the very least provided at their outlet, I would imagine. But without knowing exactly what they are, it's hard to say. So let's see. So is there somebody present to represent the property owner that can briefly go over where you're at with coming up with a site plan and when that can feasibly be submitted for review? And or Peter, do you want to first talk about, I think that's probably the best way to start. So would you agree, Peter? Is that all right?
Yeah, I guess, Commissioner Basserman, I guess if in fact we don't have a plan, why wouldn't we wait for a discussion until we have something tangible to look at?
Well, we definitely have neighbor concern, but I agree. I think we need to see what's going on the site and have additional information. So I think the main thing is knowing when the commission can expect that information.
Great. Jim Preddy, Chris Cole Engineering. Yeah, Peter, you're right. I think this needs a plan. So this notice of violation was issued on the 24th. Since that time, April 24th, since that time, the silt fence has been installed. We've been retained to do a full survey there and come up with a plan to replant the slope. The intent was always to replant the slope after the debris and the the briars and the sumac and stuff that were taken out. But we'll get that on a plan. We'll deal with those pipes at the wall. I believe are just the footing drains for the wall itself. But we have to get a survey done. It's in progress. I met out there with Jamie and the ZEO on Tuesday. Everything, quite honestly, that wall was built, I believe, in January, and it looks like everything's stable and there isn't any erosion issues. So I don't think there's any urgency, but before the next meeting, we'll have something on paper for you to review.
Great. I think that's a step in the right direction. That work for you, Jamie?
Yeah, so I would just ask to clarify, does the commission want to see that plan before requiring whether or assessing whether or not an after the fact application is required? Or given the fact that all this activity occurred in the upland review area, would you be looking for an application to be submitted with that plan?
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, the choice again?
Do you want to see the plan and then assess whether or not an application is required, or given that the activity is within the upland review area, while a significant amount of it's done, is not complete yet, would you want to see an application for the activity that has occurred and the remaining activity, essentially revegetating that slope, submitted with that plan? I think that would be the fastest way to, because otherwise if you and you could always say the application isn't necessary, it's just the application be withdrawn if you don't think it's required. But I think it's consistent with past practice.
Yeah, if we don't make the latter, Commissioner Bassman, if we don't make the latter the direction that we're taking here, then it's just going to delay any progress that we're looking to make in this area.
I agree.
Right? Because we'd have the plan, we look at the plan, and then the next meeting. So why don't we take that combination approach?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's see, cease and correct 230501, notice of violation.
Wait 1 minute, Peter. We do have a hand raised.
Oh,
do you want to
recognize? I'm trying to see the hand raised.
Actually, it looks like we may have two. There's so many people attending our meeting. I can't see everyone. We'll start with Stephen, since that's the highest one on my list.
Thanks. Yes, Stephen Diaz-Romero, homeowner, 3-4 Howard Avenue. We do have several neighbors on this call that are concerned about just the brook getting backed up, and I guess in the past it has flooded some of the neighbors upstream of that, and so we're just urging the commission to maintain enforcement on the action, including restoration of the bank and removal of the offending structures.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Can you define the structures you just mentioned?
The retaining wall.
Okay. Thank you.
They put a lot of fill in there as well.
Okay. And I don't see another hand raised.
Let me check. It may have
Peter Jackson.
Just extra support for. Oh, yeah, Peter Jackson.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, you have a comment?
Peter, I think you're muted. Peter Jackson, for clarification.
You're muted, yeah.
If you're trying to talk.
Okay. I'm unmuting myself. And maybe I'll give you a picture too. Is that, I don't want to scare you, but my name is Peter Jackson. I'm the architect for 34 Howard Avenue, which is a next door neighbor. My question, I don't have any problem with the inland wetland jurisdiction over this thing, but the retaining wall that in question is an illegal retaining wall. It's in violation of not the inland wetlands, but the zoning code, and the commission should know to temper its deliberations that the people at the owners of 38 Howard Avenue actually went to the town planner and the zoning enforcement officer, and I believe to Jamie Frederick, also the wetlands director to inquire about the possibility of doing this project, and they were told absolutely that they couldn't do it under the way they wanted to do it, and they went ahead and did this thing anyway. This is a flagrant violation. I mean, obviously, especially with inland wetlands, people make errors. They do things that aren't exactly by the book, but this is spitting in the face of the commission, and it just shouldn't be allowed. Now, the problem for us is that this retaining wall is 2.1 feet from our wall, and which is illegal, and it's being done. Well, I don't want to put
Can I, excuse me, this is Commissioner Baskin, can I interrupt? Jamie,
please.
The thing that we do here is contact town engineer and P&Z to determine whether there's a history here that is relevant to our jurisdiction.
So I have been in touch with the zoning enforcement officer. Like I mentioned previously, she's the one that brought it to my attention. I know that she's issued a cease and desist or a cease and correct order, and that the owners know that they need to resolve that as well. So I'm sure that they'll be looking to address those regulations when they come up with their site plan. What that process looks like, I'm not really sure. I have heard that there was previous discussion about projects of different scope with the zoning enforcement officer for this site. I don't specifically recall having any conversations with the property owners relative to this site. I can't say I haven't, but I don't recall it. But yes, so they have violations that they have to resolve. And I'm sure that they're looking to resolve all of them just as much as they're looking to resolve the one that I sent for notice for inland wetlands. So we'll see what they submit for the next meeting. And just because the activity has already occurred, it doesn't change how the commission reviews it. It's either a permittable activity or it's not. They either need more information or they need to modify or remove or whatever. But they'll submit their application of what they want to do. It'll be reviewed on the merits of the application. And then depending on the outcome of that application, there may be additional actions relative to the enforcement order or not. Depends on how that application proceeds. However, the enforcement is still standing until it's resolved. So they will have to maintain the erosion controls. There's no additional activity to occur until there's approval. So certainly we want to make sure that there's no further impacts to that watercourse area. And since the activity has occurred, the application is a little bit different in the sense that the commission will kind of be looking at making sure that anything that was changed is addressed in the site plan.
So I appreciate the comments, Mr. Jackson. I think the due process here is going to continue both within the context of inland wetlands as well as any other department that needs to be involved in this. And as I say, right now, I think there's enough activity in the wetland area for us to pay attention to, and we'll certainly reach out to the other departments to make sure that there's appropriate recourse to the extent that, that's something that we don't control. We only control the inland wetland part.
Peter Jackson again. I appreciate that, sir. But I think you should know that there's probably 3 or 4 feet of fill that's been put onto the back of this site, and that essentially almost all of the backyard that is in any way usable is now a hard surface very unreceptive to any kind of mitigation of groundwater or roof water or anything. And all of this is done without permit. And also a part of the reason for the retaining wall is in order to park cars directly in front of a window that is in our house that couldn't be that way when we did the house because you couldn't have a hard surface area there. Anyway, I don't want to belabor it, and I understand that it's not really, most of this is not the purview of inland wetlands, but I do want you to be aware. Thank you.
The comments and this may be once we get a plan, something that we would also schedule a site walk for so we can see ourselves the conditions that are on the site. But I thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a raised hand on this? I don't see it. Okay. Cease and correct 230501, notice of violation 144 Brushy Plain Road, vegetation removal and piling of woody debris.
Okay. Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. I first received notice that there was activity occurring on this property. I want to say would have been back in March because it was right before I was going out for surgery on my left hand. And I had asked if it was visible from the road or if I could do a site visit, and I never received a response. I received another complaint about activity via phone. That activity was still ongoing when I got back. So I went through the town property to take a look. I could see that there was clearing, which seemed to be mostly understory. Looked like a lot of the leaf litter and debris on the ground had been kind of piled up, and there was exposed bare soil. So I sent a notice of violation to the property owners. They were very responsive. They contacted me immediately, had me come out to do a site visit. Upon the site visit, it looked like there was some direct impact to the edge of the wetland area. And there was a pipe, which I think is either the footing or roof drainage, I'm not sure, which had been extended, and it looks like it may be extended, if not into the wetland area, certainly very close to it. So I issued a cease and correct order to kind of help set the stage and make sure that the commission can kind of, move forward with the process and try and minimize the amount of meetings this is on the agenda. So the owners have been very cooperative so far. I asked them to install erosion controls. I met with them yesterday to inspect the erosion controls. I asked for some additional measures to be implemented, and I have since received photos showing the staked hay bales that have been added. And it's my understanding that they have hired a soil scientist that I believe will be out to the site this Saturday. And I believe they were planning to attend, so hopefully they can correct, clarify, expand. But this is also a just cause hearing, so it's for the commission to ask questions and also for the homeowner to ask questions and, correct any information, provide insight, or whatnot. So I think at this point, the biggest step is to get the soil scientist out there, identify the limits of the wetland area, any direct wetland impact, assess the erosion controls and see if there's additional measures that should be implemented, and probably look at a restoration plan for these areas. So I can share some photos. Let's see.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, when was the NOV issued?
Let's see. The NOV was issued April 24th. And I heard from them within less than a week, pretty much probably right when they received it.
And then you followed up with a cease and correct? on what?
And then I followed up with the cease and correct due to the proximity of the activity to the wetland to just make sure, because I figured there were going to be corrective actions the commission was looking for. So just to make sure it was in the right platform to expedite the process. So let's see.
Yeah, so this is the last day of the window that we had for just cause hearing?
For opening it, yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, screen share. So the photos you're looking at are the photos that I took from off-site. You can see that there's piled woody debris and bare soils. But it was kind of hard to tell the full extent of the activity. After that, I went out to meet with the property owner, and this is looking from the opposite direction, up from the house looking towards the rear yard. And the wetland area is approximately in this area here. I believe that this area kind of was lawn previously that got disturbed from trying to clear out vines and whatnot that were growing on these plants. So this area has been reseeded with lawn mix, but the area that was not previously lawn is still bare. So here you can see skunk cabbage, and this appears to be in the location that the wetland we have on file is located. This is the pipe that I was talking about that has been extended. One of the things we had talked about was getting some hay bales staked to help prevent any further spread of siltation from the flows coming out of here until the pipe extension could be resolved. And then
This is Commissioner Bassman. How much of an extension was that, Jamie?
I'm not sure if the property owner is present and can maybe provide some insight. You should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to Home Depot and they either have a 10 or 12-foot section, I can't recall, of pipe, which I attached and extended it either 10 or 12 feet.
Thank you.
And we did put hay around the, several hay bales around the outlet where the water comes out of that pipe, as whatever measure, either temporary. We did send you those photos today via email.
Yes, and I'm looking to pull those up.
Yeah, that whole line of hay has been fully extended.
Okay. You have more photos, Jamie?
I do. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. So this is from when I went out to inspect, and I asked them to extend the erosion controls up and at the outlet as discussed and shown in the markup, and they did do that. It looks like I didn't put those photos in the Dropbox, but I can pull them up for the commission to look at. All right, so you can see the staked hay bales, the upper limits of the activity in this photo, and at the pipe outlet. So I've not seen these. I asked them to send me photos. I'd probably suggest that when the soil scientist is out there that he just, confirms that whatever is there is adequate and maybe make further recommendations if needed. So I think
with him Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yep.
So yeah, when I went out there, I recommended that they contact a soil scientist sooner rather than later, given the scope of the activity. So I'm glad to hear that they have somebody coming out this Saturday. So I think there's kind of two options for the commission at this point. You can either decide if you're ready to make a decision regarding the cease and correct order, or you can provide guidance to the property owner as to next steps and continue the matter to the next meeting. it would be my recommendation that the soil scientist investigate the limits of the wetland, any direct activity within wetland, and come up with a restoration plan for activity as it relates to wetland impacts. And then the other question that I have for the commission based on past practice is whether or not you would want to see that wetland location identified on the survey relative to the previous wetland delineation as part of your review. Or if you would just be satisfied with the soil scientist doing the investigation, or start with that and see if you're satisfied with it.
Yeah. Just Commissioner Bassler, that's where my head is at. I think we need the professional assessment from the soil scientist. You know, there's a bunch of things going on the site, and hopefully we get a complete report so that we can decide on the next step.
Okay. Any commissioners have additional thoughts or comments?
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, the area that you saw or showed on one of the pictures, which had not been seeded, and I think it was in the rear of the picture. How close is that to the wetland?
So let me see here. There's a wetland on site, and then there's an additional wetland area off site on the town open space. And the activity does appear to extend off of the subject property onto the town open space. The activity on town open space appears to just be movement of woody debris and leaf litter for the most part into piles. So that would be something else I'd want the soil scientist to assess, whether anything should be done with that piled up material, particularly as it pertains to the wetland located downslope from that activity. Let's see.
So how do we proceed then? Do you have a list of items that you want the soil scientist to address and come back at the next meeting to then decide how we're going to proceed, or how do we move this ball forward?
So I do kind of have a draft list of concerns. So just to kind of show everyone, 144 Brushy Plain Road is a subject property. It's an interior lot. The pink line is a wetland delineation we have on file from when the house was initially built. There is a water course on the town open space property and an associated wetland area that has not been delineated. So what I would recommend the commission look for from the soil scientist to assess the extent of impact would be, again, the limits of the wetland area, including any areas that may have been recently impacted, an erosion control analysis to determine if what's there's adequate for the time being, a restoration plan that addresses soil stabilization of disturbed areas, wetland impacts, the pipe outlet, and whether that should be revised back to the prior condition or something in between, and then addressing the piled debris between the two wetland areas. Yeah. And then possibly after that information is received, the commission can determine whether the survey information is required or if the impacts are fairly minimal and can be determined by the soil scientist and identified to the satisfaction of the commission. That might be enough, because it doesn't look like there's significant regrading or anything. It's surface disturbance. So,
and Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, the existing purple line, the date of that?
I'm gonna guess around 2001.
Okay.
I don't know that I copied the wetland, soils report.
Okay.
2001.
Yep. Got it. Okay, so the soil scientist, did I hear we have a date for the soil scientist to appear, or is that still to be determined?
This Saturday. So I can send a quick email off to the property owner outlining those points so that way they can make sure they discuss them. And if the property owner or the soil scientist have any questions, by all means, they can contact me. If they have any questions immediately right now for the commission, they can bring those up.
Any questions, Mr. Jamo? No? Okay. Yeah, I think that email would be most helpful to not only the soil scientists, but those of us that are going to review that material.
Okay.
Next up, notice of non-compliance. Inland Wetland 200301, 58 Industrial Road, contractor yard. Non-compliance with the erosion control plan and the site layout that had been issued. Is this the one at the end of the road that goes by Stop and Shop and Rings Inn and all that?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Yeah, it's the one on the end on the left-hand side as you're going down the hill.
Oh.
Don't worry, we got the right-hand side next. So this has been on the agenda for a little while. It came to my attention that site work has started. The erosion control plan isn't really being implemented as approved. I haven't really seen any huge red flags regarding the erosion and sedimentation concerns. However, it's ongoing. The work is not really in alignment with the site plan, particularly in regards to the overflow from the temporary sediment trap, which includes the installation of a stone swale, which discharges and ends directly in a wetland area. Ultimately, I think the condition right now is better as is than changed without having a revised plan. But certainly since things don't jive 100%, I'm looking to get a revised plan of what the property owner is looking to do, an estimate of when that can happen. If there's going to be any temporary seeding before it's kind of too late to do that. And it looks like the property owner and the project engineer are present, so I will hand it over to them.
Mr. Bassman, one question I guess I have for you, Jamie, before comments from the participant. What's the difference between non-compliance, a notice, versus a notice of violation?
I would say the biggest difference is the notice of non-compliance pertains to an existing permit, whereas a notice of violation doesn't. So I didn't issue the cease and correct order because, like I said, I didn't see any immediate red flags. And it was my understanding that a revised site plan would be submitted. It's still my understanding that that's kind of the intent, but we haven't received it and it's been on the agenda for a couple of months. So I think we need to kind of just get a timeline on what to expect and what direction things are going in.
Yeah, Jim Preddy, Criscola Engineering here at Branford. Jamie kind of said it here. It's an ongoing construction project. There's quite a bit of earthwork that had to happen to make the plan happen the way it was on paper. We haven't exceeded, I don't believe, the limits of disturbance, at least in reference to the wetlands that was approved. The erosion controls have been in. Slopes that were cleared of the invasive brush that was there have been all covered in wood chips for some time now and are all very stable. There hasn't seemed, to my knowledge, been any erosion or sedimentation issues. And I will show you just to kind of bring everybody back up. So this was the plan that was approved. basically there's two, there's an upper level and a lower level. And then this detention basin area here, there were a number of retaining walls that were associated with it. And there's this existing steep slope area that kind of comes right up to where the back of the detention basin is. We have been out there recently, and I'll zoom in some areas, but all the red or all the topography shots that we went out recently and took. And you can see, I mean, the silt fences was staked out. Everything's inside that. He has a temporary sediment trap currently where the detention basin is going, which is where it should be. There is a riprap drainage channel that outlets the temporary sediment trap to where the drainage outlet was going in lieu of the pipe at the moment. A couple of reasons for that. There was an existing erosion problem that existed at the outlet, and the road currently, these catch basins aren't here. These were suggested by us that there's no drainage at the end of the road. So there's currently some erosion. The only sediment leaving through this riprap channel currently is what's coming off the road, not from the site. None of the sediment's leaving the site right now. This trap is functioning exceedingly well. Nick has maintained, silt fence and hay bales and wood chips wherever necessary. There really hasn't been any issues. The earthwork is still going on. It's getting close, though, to having the two pads kind of flattened out. One of the things that has come up is that the sewer authority won't let them now connect to this sewer that's down at the bottom of the hill. Good news for you guys. We don't need to go down any closer to the wetland. Bad news for us is that we need to connect to this manhole in the front, which may mean raising the building a little bit. So we have to figure that out. But one of the reasons why we went out and took shots all around is to see where he is currently, and like the slope area in the front, make sure that's currently 3-to-1. The side over here, it's 3-to-1 until about where you could see that the top of slope goes out too far. So now obviously that has to get pulled back, and there's some wall that needs to go in here, and that needs to go on. But he was basically waiting for me to say, go ahead and hydroseed the 3-to-1 slopes, because then they don't have to get touched anymore. So again, I understand Jamie with issuing a non-compliance because it may not currently look exactly like the plan, but I think we're heading there. We may want to make a modification to this basin, but again, we're not there yet, and we're still in construction, and that would be kind of later on anyway. The sediment trap really needs to stay there the way it is until all the mass earthwork is completed, and we have some of this site's slopes vegetated and stable, and some of this other drainage stuff going on. So if in fact that, at some point we are going to make a formal change to this, then we'll definitely come in with a plan. I think there are some minor grading changes that have to happen in this upper area to try to get a gravity connection to this sewer manhole out here to work. Hopefully we can manage that. Otherwise he has to have a pump, which is not ideal, but it's manageable. But you can see the toe of the slope is the silt fence follows the property line right now currently, and the toe of the slope is still within the property line limits. This silt fence is from the proposed plan. I didn't move that. But just by way of an update, that's what's going on out there right now.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Mr. Purdy, your comments, did they involve just 58 East Industrial or the whole, both 57, 58, and 61?
No, I'm speaking of just on 58 right now.
Okay.
Those are separate owners and
different items on the agenda.
Items, yes.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just looking at the comments.
Quite honestly, this and Jamie even said this outlet, the way we have it, actually functions better than that pipe connection. It dissipates more energy. It solves a couple other problems. We had permission from the other owner for a pipe connection, so we'd have to kind of go back at them and see if we could leave that. If not, then we'll go back to the pipe situation. But quite honestly, this is better.
This is Commissioner Bradford. Jamie, is the concern that you had been addressed with the erosion controls and the other updates that Mr. Preddy provided, or do you still have issues of non-compliance regarding the erosion control plan?
So I think I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So, Mr. Preddy, do you mind bringing that site plan back up and also sending me a copy of that for our file after the meeting?
Yeah, and I didn't submit it because it's really just a worksheet. But,
sure. Just because the commission's been reviewing it.
Yep.
So I guess the things that part of the reason why I issued the letter is to make sure that everybody got on the same page, but also the erosion controls don't match the site plan, but there are erosion controls on site. So like below the storm temporary sediment trap, instead of a silt fence, there's a wood chip berm, which is holding up very nicely. And that kind of points out another area of difference where there's a retaining wall on the site plan. I'm not sure if that's still looking to be implemented or if they're going to be revising the grading in that area. And then again, this overflow, it discharges directly to the wetland area. So I just want to make sure the commission was aware, didn't have any significant concerns regarding that condition. And then one of my biggest, I would say my biggest concern is the overflow and making sure that there's no siltation from that temporary sediment trap. I would agree that there is some siltation in that riprap, and most of that siltation came off of the town road, which was not relative to the project. There's a pool water station.
Oh, here, yeah.
And when I was out at the site one time, gorgeous sunny day, not raining, 3 trucks lined up, and I could see when they connect, they don't have a great connection, and there's a significant amount of water that ends up running down here. So there has been, I don't know if I don't know who did it, but whether it was a town but there is some wood chips and whatnot, which I think has helped address that runoff as it comes down the hill, so that and then there's some riprap, so that hopefully that won't still be an issue. So my concern, I think Mr. Preddy can address it, is that spillway adequately protected to keep that temporary sediment trap acting as a temporary sediment trap? The original approved plan, I believe, had a standpipe for the overflow, and that temporary sediment trap definitely does hold water after a storm event. I've observed it, but there is some sediment within the rock above where that stormwater from the street drainage comes in. But I don't know if that was, created in the action of placing the rock or if it's new. So I would just want, something to address that is currently functioning as a temporary sediment trap and, relative to what was approved.
Yeah, it's actually been functioning quite well. So just underneath the stone, there is actually an earth berm, and then the stone's on top of it. So it's not just the stone. So it is impounding quite a bit of water. And what you hard to see here, and I don't know if you could zoom in, but like the bottom of this basin is like 105 change, 106. We had it at 110, so it's significantly deeper currently than what we had in the end condition. So I think in the temporary condition, I think it's more than adequate, truthfully. If you're still concerned, we can put a couple of hay bale check dams in there, but other than that, I wouldn't touch it until he's ready to make it permanent.
So I guess what the question at this point is for the commission are the deviations from the site plan okay? Assuming that there's no erosion issues, and then I don't know, from the project standpoint, is there like an anticipated time frame for having kind of a modified site plan that would address the various ongoing moving targets?
Commissioner Begemon, before Mr. Peretti answers that, let me just ask a question. If this is a permit and it was permitted for these certain ways of doing things, in general, if that whoever's doing the work wants to do something different, like put in that whatever you said instead of this, whatever that, I don't know what, and something instead of the silt fence, would they have come to your office and said, we want to do something differently?
Ideally, yes.
Ideally.
Yes, that would be the
right. So, what's hard for us, what I think gets hard is that if you just say, yeah, it's okay. I mean, where does that end? Now the next thing somebody doesn't want to do something, and you don't find out about it until it's later. So that's the purpose of these cease and, like notice of violation or notice of non-compliance is to let the people who are doing the work say, you can't do this without letting us know. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct. And I would say that's why I want to know when we can expect the revised plan. I don't want the revised plan to be submitted as an as-built once the project is completed.
Right.
Understood. Again, like the sewer thing came up kind of recently. And so adjusting the grades to deal with that, but that's at the top end of the site, really, not the bottom end. Honestly, there may be some minor changes around the edge to eliminate or lower some of the walls that we had on there, but otherwise the intent of the plan is not going to change. The only thing that has changed is that this drive down here on the right of way that goes to the other property has been moved. It's in here now, so it's kind of been moved inward, and that's why that the town. The water from that station runs off the road right down into there. But again, we've kind of captured that. So the intent of the plan hasn't changed. We're just we're still in progress here. We will come back in with some minor modifications. We have some decisions to make. But again, the erosion controls are more or less in the same place that was proposed. In this section over here, there's a wood chip berm instead of the silt fence. But as soon as we get off that this area, it turns back into silt fence and hay bales, I believe, currently right now.
I think there's some hay bale check dams along the
side over here.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's going on, and to his credit, is that this red line here, that's a kind of comes in. Well, it enters the sediment trap here, but this whole line of thing, that's the top of slope. The shot that's on the inside is the bottom of slope. So there's almost like a earth curb there right now. So nothing from the site can run off the site in any direction right here, right now. I mean, it would be physically impossible because this is kind of, it's cut up, like a curb, basically.
Yeah, there's like a diversion swale almost created to run off.
So everything is, I mean, like I said, this is functioning better than we could have really put on paper.
Mr. Passman, I guess, we have certainly projects where you can't identify everything up front, and there's going to be changes as the project moves along. And I guess I'm wondering, in our standard or general conditions, Jamie, do we have a section in there that says, modifications to the permitted plan, shall be communicated to the Inland Wetland Office prior to being done? And I guess at what point, is something substantial enough to meet that requirement, as opposed to something that's done on site and then it's into the assessment of whether it's a large modification, a minor change, and all that kind of stuff. And don't we have this with any project of size?
I will say, Peter, honestly, Jim Preddy again, there's a start and an end to all these jobs, and sometimes in between it gets a little, things happen. You got to deal with stuff out in the field, and it's never, A through Z in order. Sometimes you got to take things out of order because of the reality of life. But I think the intent has not changed. There may be some minor modifications coming, but we'll as far as right now, I think we're still heading toward this plan, and we'll get Jamie whatever changes we decide to make.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking more general than that, Mr. Preddy and Jamie at the same time. It's what becomes a minor modification as opposed to a reportable modification. And somebody made the comment that, you didn't want to just get an as-built at the end that says, here's what we did, right? You want to be involved in the process as the project moves along. And I don't know that we defined, an area, what we consider minor modification as opposed to a reportable event.
I think the three big things for me were the wood chip berm, because the commission, from my knowledge, has never approved that as an erosion control measure. However, like I said, it's working. I have not seen any issues with it. Assuming the project is continuing to move along at the pace it's moving, it should hold up for, I would imagine, the foreseeable future. Obviously, if there is a problem, then we end up possibly with a cease and correct order. But I think it's important to identify the fact that it is different and see if the commission has concerns. Granted, I think those current site conditions, it would almost be difficult to install the silt fence and possibly counterproductive. And then I think the biggest thing in and of itself was the fact that some of that stone from the riprap swale was placed in the wetland and there was no activity proposed in the wetland. So I just wanted to bring it to the commission's attention, see if there were any immediate concerns. But like I said, at this point, I think leaving it there for the time being until a revised plan is submitted and reviewed would probably be the best course of action. And then I just wanted confirmation from the project engineer regarding the changes in the temporary sediment trap, because it has all of that water being directed to it, which is ideal with a temporary sediment trap. That's what its function is. But it is not as shown on the site plan, but that doesn't mean it's not functioning as designed on the site plan. So I kind of wanted something to address that concern, which has verbally been addressed this evening. So those would say would be the three that made me submit something in writing and put it on the agenda rather than just correspond back and forth with the property owner and the project engineer, like on more minor changes.
And Commissioner Basserman, the concerns you have they just been verbal, or has there been written communication regarding that?
You mean the concerns I just mentioned, or?
Yeah, the three.
I've definitely conveyed concerns. I don't know that I've specifically, I did ask specifically about the temporary sediment trap. I don't know that I specifically addressed the wood chips. I did address erosion controls. The silt fence was not installed when we first started this process. And then we have talked about the riprap swale as a modification, the fact that it is located in the wetland area. Again, I can't recall what I've specifically been writing.
We probably should document that so that we can then compare those concerns when Mr. Preddy submits the plan in its revised state, so that we can match the correspondence of concerns that you're expressing now with what was resolved in the project.
Okay. So for clarification, or is there a timeline that you want that information, or has the discussion this evening essentially been, I don't know?
Well, it sounded like, and I'm not looking to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounded to me like some issues look like they're stable and resolved, and other issues you're still looking for information. So maybe we categorize the two just like that, saying my understanding from our discussion on May 11th was that the following has been completed, but another section that would say, here are my outstanding questions still to be addressed. And this may not be the only time that we have something like this, you know, a month from now, where there may be some other conditions that change. But at the end, when we get the project as it concluded, we make sure that all of those concerns are addressed.
Well, I guess I would be deferring to the commission to see if you have any additional concerns, because I think the areas that I've been concerned with have been mentioned and discussed. And so I guess I would maybe say at this point, my concern would be that there's no further deviation from the site plan until a new site plan has been submitted for review. And I don't know if that's satisfactory, if the commission wants to tag on time frame for that, but also, you know, they've identified that there's a couple, I don't know. But that I would say would be my biggest outstanding concern at this point. And that the things that do deviate, those three things that do deviate that I mentioned, continue to be monitored to make sure that there continues to be no problem with them.
It's Commissioner Basser. Mr. Preddy, is that something that you can work with Jamie to satisfy the issues that she still has by the next meeting?
Yes, absolutely. And as far as monitoring the site, you know, I do go by there occasionally, and quite honestly, you have an owner here who is a Branford resident and is looking to move his business in here and does this work for a living. So he's going to be on top of it all the time, pretty much. So I think you don't really I don't think you have a situation here that's going to get out of hand by any means.
Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, is there